Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Wander and Muse. I'm Heather Wolpern, your host, and today I am talking to interior designer Michelle Carnes. Be sure to take a look at michellecarnesdesigns.com so you can see some of the examples of her work while we talk, so you know exactly what we're talking about. And as for me, please head over to wanderandmuse.world and go ahead and follow me there. You can see me on Facebook and YouTube. I'm starting to get some of these podcasts up on YouTube, so take a look there too, and be sure to subscribe. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, Michelle.
Hi, Heather. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I was so glad when you're like, sure, I'd be happy to be on
Let's do
your
it.
Let's do it. So go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about your work.
Okay. Hey, everybody. So I've been doing interior design for about 30 years here in Tucson. I think why people gravitate towards me more than other designers is I like to do things non-conventional, think outside the box. If you show me that you want to do a white kitchen, I'll let you do a white kitchen, but we're going to add some pops of color or some things that you never thought of before.
Exactly.
So that's my passion in design, is just kind of taking that route of the non-conventional and surprise when it comes to design.
I love that.
So yeah,
Keep it original.
Exactly.
Definitely. So I saw that on your website, on michellecarnesdesigns.com, that you have been doing interior design since 1995. That's fantastic.
Yep.
But tell me, go back even a little bit more. I mean, as a kid, were you rearranging your bedroom furniture?
Oh yeah. Yep, you nailed it right there. I was rearranging my bedroom furniture. I remember taking a set of plans when I was like 10 years old to my dad because I was going to have a step up to my mattress.
As you should.
Yeah, I was going to have 2 steps up. I laid it all out. I measured it somehow, I guess with his tape measure. But I do remember showing him, and I remember him being like, "Oh, that's really interesting," but I never got my steps. But yeah,
man, it's not too late. It's not too late.
I know. I can still have steps up to my bed, although I'm getting older, so maybe not.
But steps up to the bed and then sunken living room.
There you go.
I've always been a fan of the sunken living room.
Same here. I love it when the houses keep that. So yeah, that Barbie dolls, Barbie houses. You know, I spent more time designing the houses and using things that I found around the house for coffee tables and end tables than I did playing the Barbies, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Changing my room paint colors all the time. So yeah, it's always been in me.
Yeah, we are cut from the same mold. I remember shopping for a comforter with my father.
Oh yeah.
And I just fell in love with one. And he was like, wow, that's one of the least expensive ones. Let's get it.
Yep. And then the paint color has to change in the room.
It does.
And then everything has to kind of follow it. But yeah.
It sure is a domino effect. That's great. So when you moved to Tucson, I saw that you were with Carroll for a while and Dorado Designs. Those are both such well-known names. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you gained experience there?
Sure. I first started out at Contents Furniture, which isn't around anymore, but met a lot of fabulous designers there and learned about the furniture part of the business because there's so much furniture out there. There's, you know, good, better, best. And so that was helpful to learn that.
Definitely.
And then I went to work for Carroll, who is really well known here in Tucson for her taste and her style and
always
just
classy.
So many things. And so that was, I think, about 3 years. And I learned a lot about, you know, designing whole houses with the furniture. And then I went on my own for a while, had kids, realized that I needed to work for somebody. So I wasn't trying to be super mom and run a business when I had 2 babies.
Right.
And so I called up Elizabeth at Dorado Designs and just said, "Hey, are you hiring?" And she said, "For you, yes."
Oh, fantastic.
And what was cool about working for Elizabeth was she specializes in kitchen and bath. And I didn't have that as part of my resume yet. Even though I had done kitchen and baths, I hadn't really, you know, and that's the thing about interior design is that there's so many levels and layers that you can do. But everything is its own little entity of expertise.
That's true.
So learning truly about remodeling and kitchen and bath design and cabinetry and how all those parts and pieces have to fit together perfectly elevated, you know, my skills even more.
Definitely.
And then the pandemic hit and I, with 2 little kids at home, I'm like, okay, we're starting Michelle Carnes Designs again.
Right, exactly. But this time I feel like you have really been gaining some traction.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah. And recently you were in the Scout Guide, the Tucson and Southern Arizona 3rd edition, or whatever it's called for the
you
Scout
said it right.
And what a great honor that is.
Yeah, it is. This is my 2nd year in the Scout Guide. It's a great publication full of just local artists. So pick one up. You can get them all over town. Definitely. But yeah, so that's been great to be highlighted in there.
Exactly. And we can go on and on about where you've been featured, like Better Homes and Gardens.
Yep.
How did they discover you?
That was in my earlier days, and there was a local photographer here that actually would scout projects, and she was one of the Better Homes and Gardens scouts.
Oh, gotcha.
So she found my project. She actually photographed my project, and she said, I think we could submit this to them. And it was actually kids' bedrooms. I went over the top on some kids' bedrooms.
As you should.
I love it when kids' bedrooms had 5 or 6 pages of a feature in that magazine, and that was pretty exciting.
Right. And then another local publication that's been around forever, Tucson Lifestyle Magazine.
Right.
They've featured you at least a couple of times, right?
I connect with the editor and just let her know if I have something, or she'll reach out to me, and just have built a good relationship with them. And it's a great magazine for people to latch onto when they come to Tucson, or when you're in Tucson, right? Just
exactly.
to see what's there.
Exactly. And I love how they always have a dedicated section for home and garden. They used to be known for the flip, where one cover was the home and garden, and you'd read halfway through the magazine, and then you'd all of a sudden everything be upside down.
Right.
So they ended up getting rid of that, but they still always have that focus, which is great because Tucson has such amazing interior design, and we really need to showcase that to the rest of the world.
Sure.
So I think that's fantastic. Let's see, we were talking about when you were a little kid and rearranging your bedroom. How then did you know, this is something I would really like to do as a career?
Yeah, great question. So I didn't know. I went to college back in Indiana, Ball State University, and my major my freshman year was fashion design.
Okay.
And so as an elective in the home ec department, I took drafting. I just took drafting as like, oh, let me try this.
What
like
a great
manual
skill
drafting,
to have. Yeah.
we didn't have AutoCAD back then. So I took manual drafting, and the professor, who I was trying to think of her name before this, but I'm a blank. Anyway, took a liking to my work and my style, and right away just took me under her wings and said, you should change your major to interior design. Have you thought about that? And just having someone like that, a mentor, believe in you was all it took for me.
Yes.
And then it's funny, whenever I talk to somebody about my work or my career, how I got started, starting as that little girl, and then having that mentor, and then moving to Arizona from Indiana, starting at Contents, the path has just always stayed consistent and kept opening up and opening up and opening up.
Meant to be.
Which I'm really grateful for. Yeah.
Right. I think so often in life that is exactly what happens. These doors open into places where you're like, I didn't consider going through that door, but let's take a peek.
Exactly. And there's no way you can predict it, right?
Yeah.
You can't. It just it's flow, it just works out that way, which is awesome.
You just have to keep thinking positive thoughts and staying open, right?
Yep.
So you were talking about your design when we first started, how even if someone wants a white interior, you still kind of put those pops of color or whatever. But how else do you get inspiration when it comes to, okay, what direction are we going to go here?
Great question. So I love Instagram. Like Instagram is kind of my go-to for inspiration. I follow other designers.
Sure.
Nature is a big inspiration for me. I'm real big when I do my projects of incorporating nature, whether it be just in texture or, accessories or wood or finishes, things like that.
Definitely. And how do you feel about using all the different elements?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely important. Very important. I'm really drawn to, because I try to do this myself, and again, this is how we started this conversation, is just non-conforming. I was listening to this designer recently. I don't know where she's from, but she was talking about recessed lighting in the ceiling and how there's this common thought that we just make a grid pattern in the ceiling and we pop in recessed lights to light up a room.
No.
And she's like, no. And you know that too. And I've always agreed with that. Yeah. And she's like, we can't just we have to light what needs to be lit, you know,
Exactly.
and then you have to pick your fixtures around that. And so it's like helping, I'm inspired by that type of thought, right? The type of thought that is about, let's not just go with the white and gray kitchen. Let's not just go with because everybody's doing it, right? Or because it's a trend, you know, which sometimes people ask me about trends. I don't believe in trends. I believe in, you know, what works best for your space, what you're about, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of clients don't know. So in my process, I really help them because they don't know. They've never asked themselves these questions before.
Right.
But that's my job as the designer to go in and ask those questions. And what are you drawn to? And I'll show pictures and I'll show ideas and oh, I kind of like that, or I never would have thought about that before.
Exactly.
You know, and so that's my job to draw it out of them.
And to put their personality into the home.
Exactly. And I think that's people's biggest fear sometimes, a lot of times, is that this has to be me. I want it to be me. And
but what is me?
Yeah. But we have to define that first, right?
Exactly.
And if you can't define that, or if it's like a white and gray kitchen like everybody else has, we need to dig a little bit deeper. You know,
Exactly.
we need to ask those questions because the space has to be you. And the only way I'm going to help you get there is by you thinking about these questions, you know, that we're going to go through.
Right.
So that's what we do.
Yeah, I personally always feel that your home is a reflection of yourself.
Absolutely.
And so I think that sometimes when maybe you're feeling a little bit stagnant in your life for whatever reason, that's when it's time to mix things up. You know, get some new pillows, or
or move the furniture around, right?
Or just, of course, or even just because that piece of artwork has always been in your living room, see what it looks like in your bedroom. Right. It could really give a whole new energy to a space. Right. So I feel that so often, a lot of the times, people even have things that are perfectly good to use. They just need to use them in a better way.
Yep, that's a great point.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
So you were saying that you don't really believe in trends, but there are those trends sometimes where I remember, gosh, years ago when I was first doing the faux finishes, when that was all the rage, and I'd go to someone's house sometimes and they'd be in the peach and the cocapelli. Yeah. I'd be like, oh gosh, don't they know this is over? Yeah. So how do you handle it when, say, a client maybe has a different type of vibe than you're comfortable with or whatever? How do you deal with those challenges when your tastes just don't quite align, but you know you want to help them still? Yeah,
this has been something I've had to learn over time, because I tend to think I can save the whole world, right? And I can help everybody, right?
Well, you can.
Right, and I can, right?
We need more Michelle Carnes in the world.
But what I think that it's beneficial to clients who are looking for a designer and the designer to be really honest about, this is my style, this does fit with me. And then to be able to say, I don't know that I'm the right fit for you, you know, because this is what I specialize in and this is what I'm passionate about. Right. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
There's nothing wrong.
And then that way they get the right fit. And I've gotten better at that as I've gotten older, because I realize, you know, I can be a people pleaser and I can want to help everybody. And so I realized that it's not helping me if I'm working on a project that just I'm not excited about.
Exactly.
I want to be excited about it. And they want their designer to be excited about it, right?
Sure.
They want. And so, you know, being in this industry, in this town so long, I just last week, a guy called and I gave him a referral of 3 designers that I highly respect and that I can recommend, because I realized that just wasn't the right fit for me. And it would probably be a better fit for him. And the timeline was not something I could accommodate either. But I think that's a great question. And I think it's just important to be able to help. I can help people better that way than by taking it on and saying yes.
And I feel that when you are that transparent with someone, whether they're a potential client or existing client, it just shows respect.
Right.
To be that honest and open, being like, you know what, this isn't quite working. Let's see what else we can do to help you. Right. Yeah, that's perfect. When you go to a client's home, what are maybe some of the challenges that they have right out of the gate, or just a few tips where you know they're almost universal, like almost anyone could help how they feel about their home just by keeping a couple things in mind?
Yeah, you've kind of mentioned some of them already, and I think one is using their existing items, you know, working with what they have. is always a good thing. One of the things I do, the very first initial meeting that I have with somebody after the phone call is a design consult, and it's a paid consult for like 90 minutes.
Okay.
In that 90 minutes, I give them any and all advice that they want.
Okay.
I actually write things down. I send it to them after we talk.
Right.
Then the two of us decide if it's a good fit and we want to move on to the next stage, which is the remodel or something.
Okay.
But I was just at one the other day, and she had a room that was just, it was too much. There were too many focal points. It was too cluttered. You know, there were too many things. And so if I had to just give like a tip on the fly, it would just be rearranging your stuff. Less is more. Focus on a focal point. Most of the time, though, people are overwhelmed by this process.
They are,
because there's so many choices.
There are.
And they don't want to make a mistake, especially a costly mistake, right? You buy the wrong cabinet color and it affects the whole thing. So if people want to do things on their own, say they want just furniture for a room, start with a master plan. Don't just paint the whole house. Get the paint color, get the swatch for the rug, like put it all together instead of just impulse buy, right? Trying to do things on the fly or really quick. And what I find that clients have the most trouble with is scale. It's one of the elements and principles of design. And like you can see something, it's super cool, and then you get it in your house and it's so tiny.
Puny or too big,
or it looks like a sumo chair or something. And you're like, well, I loved it in the showroom. And I'm like, no, the showroom had 20-foot tall ceilings. And I get that, right?
So true.
But I can do that, right? And so that would be a tip. And then also, you know, people who are hiring designers, like really, really ask yourself if you can let go, if you can trust the process, if you can trust the designer. You're going to be with, especially if it's a remodel, you're going to have, I call it a long-term relationship, an LTR, with this person for a while, 6 months to a year. And so make sure that you feel comfortable with them, that you can communicate with them. That this is somebody that if I have an issue or I don't like something, I can tell that person and they're going to hear me, right? They're not going to, and those are things that we can pick up on in the initial interviews and in the initial conversations. But be mindful of like, I'm going to just trust this designer. I see her website, I see her testimonials, and be able to let go. Because that's one of the challenges I think a lot of designers have. I have it, is when clients want to be really involved or don't trust the process, or want to hold on too tight or question everything, or it's like, wait till the big picture. You did faux finishing for a while. The first layer is always ugly.
So ugly.
It's always,
I would say, please leave the room. Don't come back until I come and get you.
Like the first layer, I just put the rug down. Please go away.
It's so
true. It's not going to, we might need to move it 12 inches. I hear you, but just give me a minute to let me do what I do.
It's so true.
You know?
And I didn't want to interrupt you, but something that popped into my head was, I love that you have those 90-minute paid consultations, because that would be really valuable for someone who, say, actually has a really good sense of style, and more or less really loves their home, but would love a second opinion on something. And just to have you come in for an hour and a half to be like, hey, listen, I need a new sofa. Should I go in this direction or this? I already have these samples. I mean, how valuable would that be to just have that peace of mind that someone else who has really good taste, but who's being more objective about it, can really help you out. And I bet you've done that.
And there's where I can save the world, right? For 90 minutes. I don't have to take on the whole house if it's not a good fit, but I've helped them. And now they have a different eye or a sense or a way of looking at something. And then they can go on from there.
I'm thinking about when people say have had two homes when they were dating, and then decided to either, get married and move in together, or for whatever reason cohabitating. And that's got to be quite a challenge when you have two living room sets, So have you ever dealt with that sort of thing where you're like, okay, let's figure this out for you?
There's a lot of psychology involved when you're working with couples in their homes,
for sure,
whether they're merging or whether they've been together a long time.
Very true.
I try to make it fun and make a joke out of it. And I've had the husband sometimes say to me like, oh, you've sided with her for 3 times. And I was like, oh, you're keeping score? I was
Right,
like,
right,
okay,
right.
okay, I'm going to find something for you. I'm going to find something for you. Do you have like a leather recliner we need to keep or something?
Yeah, where's that lazy boy?
You know,
Yeah.
and when I'm thinking of the guy that said that, he was joking,
Right.
but there is this,
Sure.
my job is, you hired me for my advice and my opinion, and I'm going to give it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going with her 8 times and you twice, that's just how it happens,
Yeah.
you know?
Now,
So
what do you do in the event, say you're picking paint colors for a wall, and clearly someone has some color blindness? Do you give them a color blind test to kind of prove it in case they're like, no, that's gray. And you're like, no, that's green. Has that ever happened?
So I've never had to give them that specific test, but it's funny you asked that, because I had a project recently where the client wanted off-white. Well, there's a mazillion colors of off-white,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
There's the cool tones, there's the warm tones,
Yeah,
there's the,
you name it.
yeah. And so I went with what I thought was right for the flooring and all the surrounding and the lighting around it. And she went a completely different direction. And again, at the end of the day, you know, it's like, I'm going to tell you what my professional opinion is, and then it's your house, you know, you're going to decide what to do. But yes, but most of the time, if I have somebody who said, I don't know color, because I don't know color, you just do the color. People usually own that, you know, and they'll just say, I'm colorblind, so whatever you say,
right,
you know.
And when you're meeting with a client, either a potential client or a brand new client, how do you realistically get their expectations in check when it comes to budget?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most people don't remodel a home yet once in their lifetime, right? Once or twice, or buy a new home or build a new home. It's not something that happens every couple years, right? So,
Right.
and it's always changing. And so people will ask me, you know, well, how much will this cost? And there's so many things that have to determine
It's like,
that.
well,
Yeah.
going to buy a car. Well, do you want a Mercedes
Exactly.
or do you want, I mean, like,
yeah.
do you want leather?
So I love personally working with a budget.
Okay.
I love it when someone will give me a number, but they're always, I like it when people are like, well, I have a number. Because I have never done this, Michelle, I don't know if it's right or wrong. I go, well, let's just throw a number out there. This is a good conversation to have. You should have this with anybody. And so they'll throw it out there and I'll say, yeah, you're close, or I think it might be $100,000 more, to be all honest with you, with accessories and furniture and rugs and those things add up. And then you start that conversation, and then they're like, well, I could go like $50,000 more, but not 100. And then I'm like, okay. So I have had to say that's not realistic for the style, the taste. So you're going to have to change that. You're going to have to adapt your expectations. You're going to have, you know, we're not going to do marble. We're going to do quartz, you know, like there's certain things that we have to do. I've always, when I design, I get their ideas, I get their thoughts. They usually show me pictures, or I can see what they have at their house that they like currently. I'm always have that thing in the back of my head that this is what she said she loved, but I do know it's going to make the budget go way up.
Right.
So I have a backup. Usually when I present, I'll have like a backup or two. And then it's their choice whether the budget goes up or whether it stays down. It's not mine.
Right.
Right.
I'll give you the marble, but I'm going to take away.
Yeah. And we get to decide together collectively, you know, let's spend in the kitchen, the master bath, and the powder bath. Those are the 3 areas that are like the wow for resale or for later or for, you know, so let's focus that there. And then let's do something a little bit different in the guest bedroom, in the guest bathroom. And so I'm really good at like helping them figure out where to spend and where not to spend, right? So we can stay on budget.
That's fantastic.
But I don't know, Heather, sometimes people, it seems like they feel ashamed or like, oh, I don't want to give you a number, or I feel like they're embarrassed by it. And it's like, no, let's just talk.
Right.
Let's just have a conversation about it. And then if I say it's going to be here and you guys are like, oh, no way, then we know, right? Then you know whether to wait a couple more years or only do one room at a time.
Yeah, do one room at a time then. Exactly. So. Now, what about supply chain issues? Have you noticed things are starting to improve, or what kind of challenges?
Yeah, the challenges now, there's still some challenges with like appliances and materials, and they've limited, like if you want to pick a custom front door with a glass panel, they've limited to maybe 4 types of glass that they can get.
Okay.
The rest you can get in 2 years or a year. So most manufacturers have gotten smart with like,
So fewer customizations.
Yeah,
almost.
here's our readily available, get it in 3
Which
months.
is smart.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's if you want to wait longer, this is going to be 6 or so months. So that's still there, but not like it was right when things happen and people were waiting a year for cabinets.
Right. I heard about that.
And then the other challenge, especially with remodeling and new construction, is just trades, subs. A general contractor would hire an electrical team to come wire the house during a remodel. He'd have like 30 guys, and now there's like 4.
Wow.
So for 4 guys to wire a house takes way longer than it took. So that's what.
Is it because of not having people who are experienced with those trades?
Yep.
Or it is?
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of it is I don't want to say kids because anybody can do it, but people aren't going into those types of training as much as they used to, right?
And they should, because you can be making $75,000 out of the gate if you're doing HVAC or electrician or plumbing.
Arizona, we're still on a high of, like, when the pandemic hit, that's what surprised me. It didn't slow down. It got busier and crazier and busier, and we're still there.
Right.
Like I still have a wait list. I've had a wait list the last 2 years.
Wow.
We're still experiencing, I have a cabinet guy who is not taking any more cabinet jobs for a year because he's
just to catch up.
Yeah, just to stay caught up. So this has not slowed. It didn't slow the industry down. Some people, because of the supply thing, were just like, yep, I'm done. I'm retiring now. I got this.
I heard a lot of that.
I've done this for 40 years, whatever. There's too many issues.
Yep.
Everything's just wonky. We're done.
Exactly.
So because of that, now the cabinet guys, they lost some of their best guys. So that's what I keep hearing from subs. So I try to tell clients in the beginning that things are still going to take a while. It's not as crazy as it was, but just expect that there's going to be some time, and as long as you communicate with that with them,
exactly.
People
so their
are fine
expectations
with it.
are met. Exactly.
Manage those expectations.
So what else do you want to share before we wrap it up today?
Well, this has been really fun. I don't know. I want to keep talking, but we don't have to talk about design. I don't know. I'm very passionate about design. I'm passionate about helping people. I love the design. One of the things I love to do that I think people forget about is at the end when you've moved in, staging it, accessorizing it, right? And people don't leave enough money in the budget for that. And that's what makes a home.
For sure.
So I always try to encourage people up front, like, here's kind of the budget, but we need to leave that amount of money. And I go all over. I go in Phoenix and Tucson at flea markets, vintage resale shops, looking for, once I get that client, throughout the whole project, I'm buying stuff. And it's stuff that I like too, thank God. So if I have to keep it, I will. But I have a house that I'm working on right now, a mid-century modern house over by Reed Park in Colonial Solano. And I've been like gathering all these mid-century modern little pieces of pottery and art, and I'm staging it, and it's a blast, and the clients come in this next week and they'll get to decide what they keep, what they don't want to keep. But it's just such a crucial part of that process and using their existing stuff. They're going to be bringing some of their existing stuff.
Right.
So just allowing some money for that part is huge, I think.
That's a really good tip for sure. Yeah. And that's even a way for people to keep the home that already has had this fantastic interior design a little more seasonal by updating your pillows or that sort of thing, just to be like, oh, it's Halloween, without being too kitschy, but at the same time, like, give it a little fall feeling, give it a little spring feeling, that sort of thing. That's easy. That's just a few $100 here and there. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Welcome,
I really
Heather.
enjoyed talking with you. And again, you can find out more about Michelle Carnes at michellecarnesdesigns.com, michellecarnesdesigns.com. And thanks so much for listening today. And to see the other podcasts, head over to wanderandmuse.world. And you can find Wander and Muse with Heather on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of the podcast platforms. And please go ahead and subscribe and then follow on all the social media. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic day.